This is the Body Wise Podcast. Thank you for joining Laura and Cristina for another intimate exploration of collective wisdom.
Hi everyone, my name is Cristina Curp. I am a functional nutritional therapy practitioner, co-host of Body Wise Podcast, flying solo today, and creator of the Castaway Kitchen. And I'm so glad that you're here. Whether you're new to Body Wise Podcast or a listener since the beginning of earlier this year, we appreciate every single one of you. My sister and I have loved creating this podcast and hope to do it for years to come. Today we're doing something a little different. I want to talk a little bit about my personal journey with elimination protocols and reintroducing foods and what that looks like when you're 6 years into a healing journey. I know not all of our listeners have chronic illness, but many do. And it is something I've learned working with a functional medicine doctor as a patient and also as the in-house nutritionist, as well as through my platform, the Castaway Kitchen, and all the people that I've reached through my books and my content, is that most of us at one point or another will look to diet and lifestyle to manage illness of some sort. Usually something chronic, sometimes it's something more acute, but food is the best medicine that we have. Before we go on, I want to remind everyone, if you are listening on iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher or any podcast platform, right now is a great time. Press that subscribe button and remember to leave a review. If you're joining us on YouTube, where we have the captions to everything, and you're watching, please drop a comment and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Thank you very much. So a little background. The whole reason we're here, I guess what we started me on this journey and in doing what I do now, is my health. I was 29 years old and I had a 2-year-old baby, and we were stationed in Hawaii. So at the moment I was living out of a hotel room in Hawaii with my husband, because when you're military and you move, it's a whole thing. You live out of a hotel room. It's not easy. But I found myself at rock bottom, and 100% that stress of that move was this catalyst to I think it's what broke that, what is it, the straw that broke the camel's back. That was it. Because my health issues, which I've been dealing with since I was a child, lifelong health issues, just became too much. One of my main concerns was a skin condition called hidradenitis suppurativa. It is, it's autoinflammatory, it has autoimmune components to it. It's debilitating, it's painful, it's embarrassing. It manifests as boils and or abscesses, like clusters of, bumps and welts, and it hurts. And it happens in places where there's concentrations of lymph nodes. So usually under breast, underarm, inner thigh, groin area. And it can be from stage 1 to stage 5. Some people just completely debilitating. I was stage 3, which is pretty bad, and had it in several parts of my body, and starting at the age of 13. And I lived with it for 18 years, and took a lot of medicine and saw a lot of doctors. But it wasn't until I was this new mom, 2 years postpartum, and felt the worst that I had in my life. 2 years of not sleeping well, taking care of this baby, nursing him. It got worse. It started to spread. My weight I had always struggled with my weight, but I was 29 years old. I was getting pretty close to 300 pounds and felt completely foreign in my body. As you guys know, I'm very body positive. Health at any size is definitely a thing. I did not feel healthy at that size for my body. I remember feeling foreign in my body. I didn't recognize myself. I didn't feel good. Everything hurt. And I had a lot of joint pain and aches and fatigue and brain fog and this emotional roller coaster. And I was about to turn 30 and I thought, I'm young. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I have this new this young child and this marriage, and I want to live my life, and I want to see my kid grow up, and we're in Hawaii, and I want to be able to play with him at the beach and go on hikes and enjoy this experience instead of being miserable. So I started doing research, and that's what led me to finding the connection between food and my symptoms, and finding articles. And this was, 6 years ago, there was not a lot on the internet. I mean, it was just starting. It was very underground, nothing like it's today. And nothing, it was scarcity. But there was a blog post. It was on Rob Wolf's website, and it was a woman, Tara Grant, who wrote The Hidden Plague, who had the same skin condition that I had, and she found the correlation between food and her symptoms. And I was like, say what? Almost 2 decades, and seeing countless doctors and taking countless medications, and no one mentioned food. So I dove into it, and it was all very paleo centered. And so I dove into paleo, Whole30, then finally the autoimmune protocol. So this is where we get into true elimination diets. I think paleo is a wonderful template for most people's lives, and they can, use it. Again, when I say template, it doesn't mean that they're supposed to follow super hardcore paleo forever. But since I am an ancestral health person, a nutritional therapy practitioner, we use that ancestral template, the guide of like what our ancestors ate, and essentially foods that our body, that our DNA can recognize as like nutrients and not things made in labs. That's why, and I was an anthropology major, guys, in college. So it made sense to me, right? When you think about ancient cooking preparations, even not as far back as the Paleolithic eras, but in civilizations where they still follow traditional cooking methods of soaking, sprouting, fermenting, we tend to see, eating seasonally, eating locally, we tend to see better health, right? So it just makes sense. Anyway, so the paleo template. Paleo is a great springboard to build a sustainable diet. I mean, if some people can do some fermented or sprouted grains, if some people can do some raw dairy, there's special occasions, great. But beyond that, it's not really that much of an elimination protocol. There's a lot of freedom, and you can eat all sorts of good food. You can even make all sorts of treats. Paleo is great, especially since like coffee, chocolate, and alcohol are like kind of gray areas and allowed, right? Then you do get into Whole30. That's no chocolate, no, coffee has to be like black or with a specific kind of creamer, no sweeteners, no treats, no paleo pancakes or breads or whatever. That's a more elimination diet, right? That's also why it's 30 days. It's a 30-day like challenge, reset. You have to do reintroductions later. But then you get into autoimmune protocol. This is think of it as a prescription almost. It is meant to address a very specific things. If you have autoimmune disease, if you have symptoms of autoimmune disease, that's when you would do the autoimmune protocol, AIP or autoimmune paleo. It is super intense. You eliminate grains, gluten, wheat, corn, soy, dairy, seeds, seed-based spices like cumin, black pepper, vanilla, eggs, such a hard one. But again, things like molasses is allowed, or maple syrup is allowed, honey in small amounts. So you can still eat a lot of protein, veggies. Oh yeah, no nightshades, which is tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant. So the autoimmune protocol is by far, for me, one of the most intense elimination protocols out there, extremely comprehensive. It's not a cure-all, and it definitely wasn't for me, but it was my first experience in terms of a healing protocol. And I did it for 4 months, and then I started to add foods back in. I wasn't in remission, but I was going insane with the restrictive nature of it, and I was feeling a lot better. And so a lot of people wait till full remission to add in foods. I don't think that that's necessary. I think that 4 months of doing that kind of protocol, journaling everything you eat, you start getting pretty in tune with your body. So once I started seeing an improvement, I began to add foods back in. And there was a lot of like troubleshooting and okay, this works for now, this doesn't, or this works now and then it doesn't later, and years later. But the way you do a proper reintroduction is you eat a small amount of the food one day, and then you eat a little bit more the next day. Third day, you eat a substantial portion of that food. Then you wait 2 days. And then if you don't have any reactions, that food's safe. If you have a reaction at any given time, the food's not safe. Doesn't mean it won't ever be, it just means it isn't right now. So the autoimmune protocol, the reason it omits these specific foods or all those foods is numerous reasons. High anti-nutrient content, all sorts of plant matter, nuts, seeds, vegetables, all that. They have anti-nutrients. Everything that's alive has a defense mechanism, including vegetables. And there's essentially mild toxins or irritants, right? Or indigestibility, like, sometimes certain seeds you eat them and then they come out the other side completely undigested. Well, that's because that plant wants to survive. So if a deer eats, this plant with its seeds, but then walks 10 miles and then poops it out, that seed will grow right where it's pooped out, So same thing with like tomatoes, you can make actually pesticide from tomato leaves and like a lot of different plants. The same thing that plants have thorns. So the anti-nutrients. And so, but people with impaired guts, right, or immune systems, we tend to respond to these things. And there's there's lectins, flournoin, tannins. There's a lot of different anti-nutrients. Oxalates are a big one that people are avoiding, people who do carnivore. There's a lot of different reasons why. What different people react to different foods. For example, I react to nightshades. It's one food I have not been able to reintroduce, and I don't think I will. I keep trying. A few months ago, 2 months ago, or a month and a half ago, I reintroduced tomatoes for the first time in 5 years. I ate sliced tomato on keto bread with mayo, with Primal Kitchen mayo, and some salt, and it was amazing. And I didn't feel horrible. I felt fine. But then the next 2 days later, I tried a little bit more tomato, and then I tried a little bit more tomato, and then it wasn't fine. And I realized my inflammatory symptoms, they're not immediate with tomato, but they're delayed and they're not worth it. So back out with the tomatoes. I also tried peppers, no go. I also tried white potato, no go. So it's okay for me. That's just one of those things. My body doesn't like nightshades. So, but everyone's different, right? There's no manual. Everyone reacts to different things. Some people do react poorly to foods that are high in oxalates, and some people react to histamines, and that's not even incorporated in the autoimmune protocol. The point is, there's a million different types of elimination diets. I do believe the AIP is very comprehensive, but it also depends on your symptoms. So I had autoimmune issues, so AIP worked for me. There's a histamine plans that you can do. I work with Dr. Becky Campbell in her functional medicine practice, and we do a lot of low histamine, which would remove, you can eat tomatoes, but you can't do like bananas, avocado, spinach are all high in histamine. And so then there's other people who, let's say their symptoms aren't autoimmune, but maybe they're digestive. Maybe there's candida overgrowth or small intestine bacteria overgrowth. And then there's different dietary protocols for that. Some people follow low FODMAP diets, which are specific types of sugar that ferment in the gut. I particularly am not a fan of low FODMAP diets. I think if you have SIBO, an antimicrobial protocol with a practitioner and a low carb diet is enough. That's what we do at the practice, and we see it work. Plus low FODMAP omits onion and garlic, which to me makes life not worth living. But I want to move a little forward. I don't want to get caught up on explaining elimination diets this episode, because I know I just did a lot, but we can go on and on the several different kinds. And I've covered them. I covered, a lot of them in my books and my blogs. But what I want to talk about is life after elimination diets with chronic illness. And again, this is my personal testimony. I don't want you to sit here and think your life is going to be like mine. I always like to remind people I am in many ways an exception in terms of that I have a lot going on. My skin condition is particularly sensitive and hard to manage. And I also tend to run like my sister says, Laura, not here today, but Laura says, I run high octane. I'm stressed. As far as like and fun that I am, I'm stressed out, guys. I'm a intense person. But that happens when, you're a business owner and a mother and a military spouse, and life happens. And I know that stress oftentimes impairs my health, and I'm managing it. I actually just started meditating because of that. But what I want to go into is, I did some reintroductions, right? And if you follow my blog, you'll see that my recipes, sometimes I use nuts in recipes, sometimes I don't. My first book is nut free. My second book has cashews. I dabbled in dairy for a little bit. I still am nowadays, but I'm finding a correlation between dairy consumption and pain in my left knee. Do I see these things as me still being sick? No, I don't have leaky gut. I don't have dysbiosis. I know I was recently tested. My lab work comes back amazing. I had lab work done in February, and I was feeling pretty stressed out. And the person who ran my lab work was like, we can work on some stuff, but I haven't seen lab work as good in a long time. Like, my inflammatory markers are low, except for I tend to be deficient in magnesium and B vitamins, so I have to supplement with them. And I tend to be deficient. I tend to run a little low on vitamin D. Not right now for sure, because I've been in the sun every day, hence my awesome tan. But I know these things, so I manage them. I just burn through. Some people just burn through certain nutrients faster than others. But I am not by any means still sick, not how I was. I can push my body. I can function at high levels. But that doesn't mean that I can eat whatever I want and do whatever I want. It takes management to stay healthy. And that is the hardest part for people. It's why can't I go back to life before? And this is the kicker, guys. You can, if you want to. It's your choice. It's a choice. I choose to not go back to life before because I did not feel well. I dabble, like cheese and wine. Ooh, dairy and booze in one night. Whoa, like party animal. But for me, that is a worth it moment. There might be some consequences to that, but I'm going to do it because I'm grown and I know my body, and I know that I won't push it to the point of a full autoimmune flare, but my knee's going to hurt and I'll probably have a headache, but that's okay. I also know the next day when my knee hurts and I have a headache, I'm not wondering what caused it. I know exactly what caused it. I know what's coming. After years of, that's why food and mood journals, or food journals and symptom trackers, are so important, because when you start correlating, at first it feels like these dots and you're like, what is happening? There's like things go on and I eat things and then there's things, but even if the reactions take 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours to manifest, if you continue to tie those together, you will find those correlations. And it makes it more difficult when you have a reaction that shows up 3 days later. It makes it harder. But eventually, if you really keep tracking it, you will find that correlation that pattern over and over again. And through these patterns, that's how I've discovered how my body reacts to all sorts of food. Some foods are even good for me, but they cause certain reactions, like Brussels sprouts. People tell me, oh, I get gassy, sometimes. Then it's just like, I don't know if I should eat that food. I'm like, well, what food is it? It's like, it's Brussels sprouts. It's like, Brussels sprouts is going to make everyone gassy. It doesn't mean that you have bad gut health. If you get gassy when you eat like sweet potato, okay, that's an issue, probably like dysbiosis. But cruciferous vegetables make everyone gassy, but I also know that if I eat cassava, it's probably going to give me some cramps. My gut does not like does not like tapioca or cassava for some reason, but I know my body. I know that if I have too much sugar, even in whole food, in forms like maple syrup or honey, that I will have a flare. My skin will begin to flare. Like, I will have inflammation and my skin will freak out. I know that when I eat too many nuts, my joints start getting achy. And almonds and stuff like that, I have a lot more. I mean, I really have to overdo it. But if I do peanut butter, I can do it in small amounts because it's so delicious. But peanut butter, first, it's a legume, also tends to be kind of like high mold food. Peanut butter, more than 1 or 2 servings, and I'm not feeling so great. And I know that sounds like, oh my God, Christina, that's so depressing. What can you enjoy? There's a lot of things I can enjoy. For example, dark chocolate. I can eat dark chocolate till the cows come home. I don't react to it. I can drink coffee as long as it's decaf. I have no reaction to it. Caffeine lately makes me like wired, like really wired. Like this is me without caffeine. And I can eat all the vegetables as long as they're not nightshades. I can eat broccoli, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, sweet potato, all the things. I can eat fruit, actually. My body does pretty good with fruit, especially in the summertime. And if I'm in a warm climate, I don't know, it's weird. Maybe it's my Cuban blood. My body knows. If I'm in Florida or in Hawaii, my tolerance for fruit, for tropical fruit is I can do pineapple, I can do mango, I can do papaya, no problem. I can eat berries. Oh my gosh, I eat blueberries by the truckload and I'm fine. I mean, I can eat tons of food. I can eat seafood and all the different proteins. So I eat really well, believe me. You guys know, if have my book or my blog, I feed myself. And I enjoy the food I eat, which is, I think, the biggest thing. I do like to cook, but every meal I make, I make it delicious, saucy and yummy and flavorful and fun to eat. And there's always new products. Like I just found these egg cauliflower wrap things at Costco, and it's like really awesome to make wraps, and it's super easy, and they feel great. So life after eliminations, maybe to you that might sound the way I live. Maybe to some people might sound sad. Like, what do you mean you can't go for pizza and beer, or there's a party, you just can't eat whatever you want? Well, I can. I choose not to, but I make that choice very consciously, because the same way that I consciously make the choice to indulge where I see fit. For me, it's worth it to indulge in, maybe some white rice with sushi, or white rice with fried eggs, which is the best combination ever, occasionally, or in wine or cocktails sometimes, or in dairy sometimes. But again, I will do cheeses, but I won't do ice cream, because I know that like milk makes me sick to my stomach, like stomach cramps, pains. No, thank you. Dairy is lingering, a little like mild joint pain the next day. Again, pros and cons, weighing what's worth it or not. But to go to a party and be like, well, I'm going to have the mac and cheese, and I'm going to have the potato chips, and I'm going to have the cake, and I'm going to have a beer. I wouldn't do that, because none of that is worth it for me to be in pain. And eating gluten would be something, or nightshades would be something that wouldn't just be a little bit of knee pain the next day. It would mean weeks of inflammation, digestive distress, and a skin reaction that would last. Unfortunately, my skin condition, it's not like, oh, it comes and goes. It's like when it flares, it tends to linger. Not as long as it used to. They used to be the flares used to last for months for me. Nowadays, last time I had nightshades and I flared, it was 48 hours, maybe 72, and it goes away. However, still 3 days of pain and discomfort is not worth it for a moment of a food. And it's interesting because I follow a lot of intuitive eating and, anti-diet people on the internet. And I think that message is important and true for most people. And I think that it does have its place in healing protocols and life after healing protocols, specifically if you developed orthorexia. For example, orthorexia, I'll explain it for those who don't know, is essentially a disordered eating. It's an eating disorder where you have fear. You fear food, and you're like, you fear healthy foods or foods that are even good for you. And so you avoid foods out of this like fear. And elimination protocols, the same way that we've talked about how carb fear can develop for people on keto. When you do an elimination protocol, like the autoimmune protocol, sometimes people will develop fear of like nightshades for no reason. guys, my fear of I'm not scared of nightshades. I know they're not good for me because I've tested it out thoroughly. And I remember there was a point there where I was like, is it time to test it out? Am I not testing it out? Am I being chicken? And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's bite the bullet. But I push my limit as much as I can because I do believe that most of us can heal to the point of reintroducing most foods back in. There are many people on the autoimmune who do AIP and other elimination diets who are able to reintroduce all sorts of food, even grains, like a good sourdough, even gluten, like if it's a good sourdough bread that's, and they're totally fine. Again, my example might not be the best because I'm just tend to be sensitive, but I'm 35 years old, and think about how long I was sick. I was sick for 18 years more, and I've only been healthy for 5. So who knows what the next 10 years will bring. But I wanted to record this episode because I think it's important for you guys to know that, is it worth it? I think so. If you feel like your symptoms are holding you back, like if you have chronic pain and inflammation, if you have dizziness, if you have fatigue, if you have inflammatory bowel disease, and you feel that you can't live your life because these symptoms are shackles, are hurting you, are hurting your quality of life, I think, like mine was, my quality of life sucked. And I would never trade the quality of life that I have now for the one I had back then for any kind of food. And I'm talking from the point of someone who loves food. I know there's some people out there who are like, I just eat to survive. I don't care. I could eat the same thing every day. That's not me. If that's you, bless your heart. I don't get you. That's not me. I love food. I mean, I think about it all the time. It's my joy. It's my hobby. It's my passion. It's my job. I love food, but yet there's some foods that I would not trade ever to be sick again. There's nothing that would be, like Michael Pollan himself can show up to my door and be like, I'm going to make you some homemade pasta. And my first question would be like, yeah, but is it gluten-free? And I think that finding that really strong sense of I deserve to thrive, and no amount of peer pressure or whatever will deter me from feeling better is important. And again, it's hard at first because before you start feeling better, you're like, well, man, I'm not eating anything and I'm not feeling better yet. And this just sucks. It's so depressing. And it can totally feel that way sometimes, especially in the early phases, because sometimes you're a month, 2 months, and you're not feeling better. So before I leave you guys, I want to pop into that really quick. Remember, I did AIP for 4 months, hardcore elimination phase, and I wasn't in remission, which means I was still having symptoms, but they were reduced. They were farther apart, my flares, and they were much shorter. So there was an improvement, which is why it's important to journal everything so you understand, you can quantify these results. If you've been doing elimination protocol 3 to 4 months and you're not seeing any improvement, like you're like, I'm not seeing any improvement, then it's time to test. And I'm not talking about those at-home tests because honestly, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, the Paloma test is decent if you want to do your thyroid test at home. But again, if you have like if your TPO, your antibodies are high, you need to talk to an endocrinologist anyway. Although I do think they offer doctors. Anyway, I'm not affiliated with them. We used them during coronavirus when people didn't want to go to LabCorp at the practice. But I would say if you have like food reactions, screw a food intolerance test. Those things are never like, I don't like them anyway. They've never been relevant for me. A stool test. You got to check your poop. You got to do, we like the Diagnostic Solutions GI map test. And you need a test that's going to look at gut infections like H. pylori or pertussis, parasites, worms, candida, fungus, opportunistic bacteria, zonulin levels for leaky gut, your immune, like inflammatory levels in your gut, immune response in your gut. Look at the secretory IgA. So comprehensive stool tests. Most of these are covered by insurance, even if you do them through a functional medicine doctor. So if you're not getting better and you feel like, okay, I'm giving it my all and I'm not feeling better, sometimes you need a targeted supplement protocol to kill opportunistic bacteria or get rid of candida. Some support things. Sometimes our detox pathways aren't open. Sometimes our hormones are out of whack. For hormone test, it's expensive, but the Dutch test is a good one. If not, your primary care doctor should be able to order you a full hormone panel, even though it's blood, saliva or urine. Having some information is better than nothing. And again, you can address your symptoms and inflammation, and doing the diet is at least going to prime your body for healing. There's just sometimes you need a little bit more, because sometimes the diet can help with the symptoms, but you're not necessarily addressing the root cause. And everyone's different, but I do think that if you're not prepared for a dietary protocol, don't waste your money on labs, which is why I'm a big fan of try the diet first. You'll save money and you can possibly cure yourself without having to spend a dime in the doctor's office. But if that doesn't work, okay, then try out the tests, right? And I guess what, when you get the test results, especially if you're working with a functional medicine doctor, you're going to put you on a specific protocol, because diet is the best medicine we have. Yes, supplements help, but you can't out supplement diet. So again, I know I kind of go around in circles with this, but diet isn't a fix all, but let me tell you, it's a big part no matter what. So life after elimination protocol. So then once you do a targeted protocol after you get tests done, if that's where you end up, then that's usually when you start seeing some, really quantifiable changes, like, symptoms are greatly improving pretty rapidly. And then you're still going to have to do the reintroductions with food very slowly. And then there's still going to be that management of, the goal is always to reintroduce as many foods as possible successfully, but you don't want to, again, mess up all this hard work by going, like, after all this elimination stuff, head first into, a donut or whatever, like Krispy Kreme. Once you've reintroduced, I don't know what's in donuts, like flour, sugar, water, like once you've reintroduced cane sugar and gluten, okay, then maybe you can try a donut. You know what I'm saying? Like, things have to be one at a time. I'm just saying it's okay if you have to have long-term management of your lifestyle, of your symptoms with diet. I remember I posted something June 20th, when I turned 35, on Instagram, like, I'm a 35-year-old person with at least one diagnosed chronic condition, and I'm sure like other undiagnosed ones. And I'm a woman who's pretty much been overweight my whole life. I lost 60 pounds, but I'm pretty sure most people would still consider me, on the chunkier side. But I'm active, I'm strong, I have energy, my skin is clear, my hair is full, my inflammatory symptoms are in remission. I am on 0 prescription medication. I could be, like, I understand that some people, like my mom, she's on thyroid medication, like, because she has to be, because most people with thyroid issues need thyroid medication. I understand that. The point is that I don't take high blood pressure medication or cholesterol medication or, antacids or laxatives, or, I don't take like Humira, which is often prescribed for my skin condition. And again, these are all choices, and it's not, if you choose to take medication, it's not failing either. I just know that my body doesn't respond well. It never has. I took so much medicine in my youth, literally super hardcore conventional, all the drugs, asthma medications, rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds of antibiotics and corticosteroids. Last time I took antibiotics, my hair fell out like at a handful. So I choose not to go that route. I choose to manage my health through diet and lifestyle for the long haul. And I think that's the key word. I've said choose, choice, choose your choice. And I think remembering that this is a choice I get to make. That's important, because often people feel I have to, I can't. No, you can do whatever you want. You can eat whatever you want. You choose not to. And so that's something that sticks with me as I go on. And I think this is for the long haul. I'm going to be 45 and probably still eating close to how I eat now, so I can still feel good. And I think the trick to, the key to making it work for you is making a choice that's right for you, and no one else can make that choice. So if you are feeling sick and kind of hopeless and confused by all the options out there, take a deep breath, slow down, just start. Even if you start with paleo, even if you start with a Whole30, doesn't matter where you start. You start somewhere, and you just take that first step, and you do that first day, and you take a day at a time, and you build from there, because that's all we can do. But if you want to get better, just know that you can. And it's not overnight, and there's no quick fixes, but it is 100% worth it to feel better. And there is no wrong or right path. Everyone's path is different. So no matter which path you choose, it's your own. And I think the long-term commitment is founded on the fact that it's a choice that you're making. So just never feel stuck, because our symptoms are something we don't have a choice, right? We didn't choose to get sick. We just got sick. Or we have these genetics, or whatever it is, the predisposition, we were exposed, who knows? That's something that we didn't have that choice, but now we do. So we make a choice on how we're going to remedy this. And remember that choice, remember your why, because that's what's going to keep you strong for the long haul. As you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a little more onto the holistic woo-woo side of things. And, it's not all rainbows and unicorns and like avocado toast, here, but I think it's worth it. I know it has been for me. And that's why I share my story with others, to inspire them, because if I can turn around my hot mess express, then I think anyone can. So if you need more resources on where to start with a healing diet, I would highly recommend either of my cookbooks. My second cookbook has easier recipes and breaks down the information a little more nuanced. It's not diet specific. My first book covers keto, paleo, and AIP. All my books have, gluten-free, dairy-free, nightshade-free recipes. And again, just pick a meal plan, pick a recipe, start there. Thanks for listening to Bodywise Podcast. We will catch you in 2 weeks with more amazing conversations. We have a new guest coming on the show. I can't wait to share. Remember to leave your review and to subscribe. Bye.